This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
I embrace the messiness. I've lived my life with a lot of structure, and caregiving doesn't necessarily align with that.
Caring for aging parents or other loved ones while working, raising children, and trying to live your own life? Wondering how to find the time for your personal health and happiness? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, the show where real family caregivers share how to be happy and healthy while caring for others. Now, here's your host, family caregiver and certified caregiving consultant, Elizabeth Miller.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, which is part of the Whole Care Network. If this is your first time listening, welcome. This is a show produced bi-weekly to help family caregivers integrate self-care and caregiving into their lives. The Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, along with all the other podcasts on the Whole Care Network, are also available on the new WCN streaming radio channel. So there's an app that you can download to get access to that, or you can find details on wholecarenetwork.com. Each of the Happy Healthy Caregiver episodes has an accompanying show notes page. So anything that we're going to talk about today on the show, we are going to link to it in the show notes page. You'll find that by going onto the website, happyhealthycaregiver.com. Go to the podcast menu and click the image or the episode number for today's show. The link for the show notes is also going to be in your podcast platform episode description. So you'll find it there as well. If you aren't on the Happy Healthy Caregiver email list, you are missing out. Every Tuesday, you're going to get a weekly roundup, which includes tips under the pillars of happy, healthy, and caregiver. Plus, I'm going to share upcoming events that I learn about, special offers, and more. So get on the email list, and you do that by going to bit.ly/HHC eNews. I'd like to thank our episode sponsor, Rare Patient Voice. Do you want to earn cash in exchange for your opinion? Rare Patient Voice, or RPV, helps connect researchers with patients and family caregivers for over 700 diseases and conditions. For patients and caregivers, RPV provides the opportunity to voice their opinions to improve medical products and services while earning cash rewards. Rare Patient Voice, helping patients and caregivers share their voices. If you're interested, join the RPV panel by visiting rarepatientvoice.com/Happy Healthy Caregiver. For this episode segment of What I'm Reading, if you want to get swept up in a captivating mystery and you want to read a book that's going to pull you in to read because you're going to want to discover who done it, then this recent mystery that I read as part of my book club is going to be a good pick for you. It's called The Shadow Box, and it's by author Luann Rice. It's about an artist that was attacked and left for dead in her home, and she has to find out who is after her all on her own, because she really is finding that she can't trust anybody in her circle, including her husband, who is running for state governor. I gave it 3.5 stars. I rounded it up to 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. I will link to it in the show notes. My favorite thing I want to share with you in this episode is on Netflix, frankly. There are some shows on Netflix that when I see a new season pop up, I drop everything to watch it. And the 8th season of the show Queer Eye was released recently, and I was reflecting on why I enjoy this series so much, and I came to the conclusion that the majority of the episodes feature family caregivers and teach them about self-care. So it's no surprise why I'm attracted and drawn to this show. This 8th season is really no different. You're going to meet real people in the New Orleans area who have sacrificed too much to care for others, or they have been in a funk due to grief or loss. You know each episode is going to end well, so I also love that. And the Fab Five take care of them to address the different categories of self-care. I'll link to where you can watch the trailer for season 8 to see if this is a show that you think you would enjoy. Let's meet today's caregiver in the spotlight. We actually have 2 caregivers in the spotlight today, which is something kind of unusual for the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast. Natalie Elliott Handy and JJ Elliott Hill are sisters. And together, along with their third sister, Emilie, they manage the care for their mom who is living with Parkinson's disease. Natalie is also a caregiver for her spouse, Jason, who receives palliative care to help navigate his cancer journey. In this episode, we discuss all the total messiness around family caregiving. We talk about letting go of perfectionism, getting access to our parents' finances, the benefits of palliative care, and both the sisters confess their guilty pleasures. Enjoy the show. I have been looking forward to this conversation with you both, Natalie and JJ. And I got to tell you, like, right before this recording this, like I'm basically caring for a geriatric dog. So he turned 13 years old this like yesterday or 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he is peeing all over my house. And I like just found 2 spots like right before I came up here. And I had some choice words with my husband about like, I can't be the only one that remembers to take him out like every 2 hours. So I'm not sure where I was going with that, but I just want to say, like, I was like, oh, I know that my conversation with the sisters is going to like turn my life around today.
Well, I mean, we're happy to tell you that we're going through menopause, and at any moment we could find spots of pee in our house.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's no rules. There's nothing.
I get it. I mean, I can give y'all advice on that because I'm already beyond that. So
Nice.
Yes, interesting. Although it's hot up here. Like that's the other thing. It's like 70 degrees today in Atlanta. And I'm like, is the air on? Like the dog peed, is the air on? Like I'm spiraling, help me. So anyway, this is the inside view of what's going on. But let's get us back on the track. So this is the Happy Healthy Caregiver jar. And so we kind of just like to always kind of put ourselves in a mindset mood here of trying to focus on our health and happiness and remember how grateful we are and to live this life. But here's our inspiration today. Let's hear y'all's tips on this. So it says, action alleviates fear and worry. Ask a friend to join you at a local meetup. Volunteer for a cause you believe in. See what happens when instead of getting lost in the oh no's and what ifs, you take action to support what matters to you. And I stole this, lifted it off of I listened to some of her podcast called Soul and Wit with her daughter, but it's Courtney Carver is her name. And she's just all about like simplifying life. But what are y'all's thoughts about taking action, alleviating fear and worry, helping you with the oh no's of life?
Jay, you go first.
I know she was going to be like, okay, Jay, go first. Okay. So I'm a big believer in action, but I'm a big time procrastinator. So let's throw that out there first.
Facts.
But it seems like always when I take the action, then at the end of it, I'm like, oh, I should have done that a lot sooner. But my action that I really need to focus on is I need to focus on the joy of it all. So, you said going out with a friend or doing something like that, picking very strategically. So for me, my action is finding that little nugget of joy in everything. And then that's my motivation. So that's my thought, Natalie.
Is there any action that you guys need to take to alleviate any fears right now?
We got some things going on that feel pretty scary. But I think we have to move forward with faith.
Yeah.
We move forward with everything that we do with faith, and that every door that opens up, we're going to faithfully walk through it.
I love that. I love how faith is a cornerstone for y'all, and that we need that. We need hope. We need something to kind of hang on to, especially when things are feeling kind of dark and bleak at moments. Well, I appreciate you all giving your thoughts on that. And let's dive into you. Like, I know you all, and I don't know who might be out there that doesn't know how fun you all are, but just in case, share just a few minutes, like how you all just joined this family caregiver club and couldn't wait to get into it? Like, what is the story? And maybe like, I was telling the ladies on the call, like, I haven't done too many where we've had multiple people. So maybe JJ, you take mom's story, and then we'll do Natalie will take hubby's story. How's that?
Sounds good. All right. So I'll start. Our mom is 69, but she's been living with Parkinson's for 20 years. And our dad passed away at 58. And we like to tell people he was our plan for care. And that's what we always thought. Dad's going to take care of mom, was always in good health. And so at mom was 57 and we inherited her. Like that was the easy thing to say. There was no planning. There was no power of attorney. There was no will. There was no financial powers of attorney. There was nothing.
It was
Elizabeth.
mostly none of our business.
None of
Well,
our
he
business.
was young. That was so
Well,
young.
Yeah, but now, Natalie, you know what this did? All of that and all of the things we've learned over these years of our year of podcasting was like, get that ready now. You need to have this stuff ready. So that's a big tip for us, is share that with everyone. But we always thought that was the plan. We never thought about caregiving. That was not a word for us. And so once that happened, mom pretty much, she stayed by herself. Her Parkinson's was advanced, but people in the community took care of her. In 2019, she had a large issue with, had what was called a Parkinson's psychosis, which doctors weren't talking, and they over medicated her. And at that point in 2019, that's kind of when we really took over full time for mom. And during this is like the hard part, from 2019 even to today. We've gone through trying to keep her at home, 3 assisted living facilities, and now we're in skilled nursing. And so that is kind of the meat of it all, and the guilt and all of that tied into that is why we are messy caregivers. But that's the truth, I think, about all caregiving. But we blend that in actually with Natalie's story about caring for her husband, which is really how the podcast got started, because we all in caregiving, our stories are similar.
Yeah.
So yes, messy is the exact word I would say. Messy. And you know what? I embrace the messiness. If you don't, and as a type A, I'm very much a type A, Elizabeth, and my entire professional career, I've been in the mental health field, and I've been in leadership or executive roles. And I've always had to have the answer, and I've always had to make sure that we were in control, that we were in control equaled compliance, right? Compliance with regulations, compliance with licensing rules. And so I've lived my life with a lot of structure, and caregiving doesn't necessarily align with that. And so I quickly found that out when my husband was diagnosed with a head and neck cancer. It was an HPV related cancer that we found out had probably been in his body for over 5 years, that his body just couldn't find out. And it's very common. And there's a lot of shame around even that being HPV, because people automatically think, oh, sexually transmitted. And, of course, it was interesting. The doctor said, don't tell your wife that you could have gotten it off a toilet seat. And I'm like, well, thanks. That makes me feel better. But the reality is that there shouldn't be shame in a diagnosis. And because he always qualifies the statement with, I never smoked and I barely drink. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. You have cancer. You don't, it's like, so that was a little hard, but we went through that entire journey, getting second opinions, moving to New York City. I sacrificed in the sense of, for the best treatment, we moved out of state and I knew no one. Therefore, I knew everyone, because no one was immune in New York City to my conversations. I am a social butterfly. And so everyone at Trader Joe's, if you'd like to sponsor this episode, you can. Everyone at Trader Joe's, everyone at Morton Williams, everyone at MSK or Memorial Sloan Kettering, I knew everybody. And so it was the hardest time in my life. And I never self-identified as caregivers. We never identified as caregivers until I got back. And when I came back, I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I explain it like the whole time I was with Jason, it was like a bipolar high.
And that's her husband, by the way, not my husband, Jason.
Oh, that's terribly convenient. And your daughter's name's Natalie. So
I
terribly
know.
convenient. We're meant to be
Yeah.
besties. And
Yeah.
so um, I think that's probably the biggest thing is that, you know, I didn't realize what that was going to, how it was going to affect me. And I worked the whole time. I talk about this on our podcast. I worked the whole time. I took 3.5 weeks off in the 10 months of total active treatment. And they were never consecutive days because I was an idiot. And so I thought, oh, I've got to please everybody. So this mask of perfectionism, that sort of idea. So we come back. I tell the sisters, I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And then something like caught my attention. I'm like, I think I'm a caregiver. I think I'm having caregiver grief. Who has grief after their husband survives? That's crazy. Like, that's stupid. And then and all at the same time, coming back, we're moving our mom, making decisions of where to place our mom. So Emilie and JJ were taking the lead on mom's care while I'm caring for my husband, and they're caring for me at the same time, and vice versa.
I
And
mean, it
so-
doesn't surprise me because I feel like when you were in that action mode of caring for your husband and this stuff was going on with your mom simultaneously, like you didn't feel like you had the space to kind of like unpack and unravel. Like you just had to, you were the glue. You had to like keep it all together. And then when you got back, I'm sure it was grief, but it was also this relief. And it was like, okay, I can maybe feel the feels a little bit and let go. And luckily you have sisters and I have two sisters and love, they're my people like that will love me no matter what is going on in my life. And so so grateful that you've got each other and that it has a good part of this story. But how have you, I mean, kind of back at you, Natalie, like how did you cope with, because I think that perfectionism and that productivity mode is like, and I know my older sister, like we've had this conversation, like she can kind of and we'll admit this, like she'll avoid the feeling of feels by just kind of keep doing, keep cooking, keep doing and cleaning and this and that. Like how did you break that perfectionism, I can't even say it, perfectionism in caregiving and just in life, and just allow the life to be messy? Like how did you get there?
Oh, it was hard. It was hard. It was involved a lot of tears and a lot of self-reflection. I like to think I'm the only person who argues with a cancer patient. It was me. I argued with my husband, but he pushed me. And I talk about this. And there was this time, and I call it day 6. So I used as many strategies because I train on how to regulate. I train on the brain and how to calm and de-escalate. But when you're in the middle of a crisis, I don't care. All 25 years was really hard for me to do and put those interventions into place. But I did a lot of journaling, and I wouldn't have identified it as journaling. I was updating people on the Caring Bridge site. I love you, Caring Bridge.
Yes.
So what happened is if you saw my actual Caring Bridge is completely open. If you look at the Caring Bridge and you see as the days go by, it transitions from updates to updates and how I'm feeling. And ultimately I used it as an open journal and I only invited certain people to come in because it was too much anxiety for me to, became a job of just updating people on how Jason was doing via text. I'm like, it's not my job to tell you.
I totally get it. We had big family. We use Caring Bridge for my parents.
Oh.
And, I don't know why. I don't think they would use it even for like my brother. It's not like a dire straits kind of situation, but it is a nice thing to kind of go back and have this historical reference of like what happened and what you've kind of, you've lived through and survived. And kind of throwing it back to you, JJ, like you mentioned earlier about how like you've moved mom and you've gotten to experience like all these different areas of caregiving where, you're living with you. She's living first she's living independently, then she's with family, and then she's assisted living in, all of that. Like, what has that been like? Like, what is that trajectory?
I'm laughing because JJ. So here's the thing, because JJ's going to answer. JJ's the oldest. JJ is in charge. Emilie and I follow JJ's lead. So that's really important
That's a
to
lot,
note.
JJ, that you've got a lot to
So
beat
these
the
little
pack there.
eyes look
Yeah.
at her.
Well, there, I could we laugh and say, I'm the one also that feels the most guilt. So I feel like every step that we've taken, I really screwed that one up. And they're like, the sisters are like, no, you didn't. We made the best decision we could. And then I take it home and, I find the place that I can cave. I'm not the super social one like Natalie. I'm not out there. I'm the one that caves and has to kind of regroup and say, okay, we did the best we could do at that time.
Yes.
But after the issue in 2019, we actually had to take mom, and she's open about this as well. She had to be admitted to a psychiatric facility. And it's so frustrating because the doctors, initially when you have her in a hospital, they say, oh, she is mentally ill. Well, she's not. She has Parkinson's, and you have created this situation with medicine, which is so frustrating because so many times mental illness and an illness because of this what looks mental illness is actually because of a sickness. They're confused. But that was once we got her back from Florida, she came to Greensboro, which is where I was at the time. And one of the reasons she did that was because I was employed for myself. I own my own business. So that was going to be an easier route. We thought.
You had flexibility in your brain.
In theory, yes,
Yeah.
I was trying to run my own business, but she was, mom's still cognizant and she's fine. She has a little trouble getting around. We put her in the one in Greensboro. What I did not know, I should have taken her phone away because she would call me like constantly. And she would be like, hey, I'm out of Cheetos. And I would be like, hey, I'm going to come over there and like shoot you if you call me again. She's
And
like,
she texts too.
She texts like 17 times in a row. And
yeah,
I'd be like, Mom.
It's an emergency.
Yeah.
My mom had
Cokes are an
emergencies.
emergency.
Yeah.
Cokes are an emergency too.
Hershey bars. And she would be like, can you visit me today? I'm like, Mom, I was just there this morning. And I really I have a family. I've got to have dinner with my husband.
Yeah.
So, and it's so hard to balance that. I was close, but again, I still had to try and balance that with my family, my kids. I was at a breaking point. I got to tell you that. And we had no other family that was there in North Carolina. And all of our family is in Tennessee. And that includes my mom's siblings, all the people she went to school with, all of her church friends. And I remember calling my Aunt Jane, who is a real confidant for me. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I was broken. And I think that's so important that you have someone that you can talk to that openly. And she said to me, and I'll never forget this, she said, JJ, just bring her home.
Aww.
And it was like the most, I don't want to say it was freeing because I didn't want my mom, but I was like, I can't do this by myself. And Natalie says, the Lord knew what he was doing when he gave our mom 3 daughters. For people that do this alone, I don't know how to tell you how amazing you are because I couldn't do it alone. And I had this aunt who's, 76 at the time. And she said, just bring her home, Jay. And so we got her assisted living there.
And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah,
So
just at the perfect time. Yeah.
that was a hot mess. She stayed there for about 1.5 years, primarily because of the pandemic. Mom has issues because of the DUOPA, because of the medication for Parkinson's. And at a point they said, we're not able to meet your mom's needs, which was we're going to have to leave.
She's
and
outgrown
we got her
it here.
Yeah, she's outgrown it. And so we put her in another assisted living facility and she lasted there about 4 months. And then they said, we're not going to be able to meet her needs. And we love to say this. The reason why they weren't going to be able to meet mom's needs is because she threw a cup of coffee at her roommate because the roommate was stealing her chocolate.
She had Alzheimer's.
Yeah, the roommate did. But our mom, and this is why this reversal of parents and children, this is how insane it is. I call mom and I'm trying to have this serious conversation with her. Mom, what happened? Mom, you can't throw coffee at other people. And she says, but Jay, it was cold. And I'm like, Mom, that is not a reason.
It wasn't hot. Thank you.
Yeah.
At that point, we decided, we put up a group vote, and against Natalie's best wishes, we moved mom in with our youngest sister. We got her a condo, and we did that. And that was hard. Emilie being 24/7, I don't think any of us had an idea of what that was because of mom's condition. that lasted for us about 7 months.
Yeah.
And because of how mom had really started to deteriorate in her because of her illness, we made the decision to move her into skilled nursing last March. So we've been there almost a year, and she's doing better. I think it was the hard part was coming to terms with it was the right decision, and what I wanted didn't matter. It was the right decision for her.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. I mean, it's, you're getting your master's in caregiving here, just like learning those things over and over and over again. And I'm curious, like with the three of you now, and then this past year of, with mom and skilled nursing, like there's still a caregiving role. I think some people think, oh, well, they live outside of your home. There's no caregiving that needs to happen. And that's not true.
Not at all.
Not at all. So Natalie, like how do you all divide and conquer, like among the three of you? Like, do you have like roles and responsibilities, or have you over the years have been like, you own this, I own this, or you just kind of figure it out as you go? What does that look like?
So, if you're watching on YouTube, you will notice it says Natalie third favorite.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it funny. So JJ's the oldest, you can clearly tell. And I'm the middle. Like JJ's the oldest as I pull back my wrinkles. Emilie's the baby. And so we all have our own skill sets, and we've all naturally fallen in line. JJ and I are probably the most type A. We take turns being type A. JJ's always in charge, but my skill set is really in regulations because of my background and stuff like that. I am the person you come in with guns. I am the person that comes in with guns blaring, and I'm going to call commission on accreditation, joint commission. I'll call the state of Tennessee.
And I know how to do it.
I know how to do it. And guess what? I understand regs.
Yeah.
So you have to use me sparingly. So Emilie and JJ,
because you're going in like you said.
Because I'll make you eat your lunch, and I'll smile as I do it. So, but I also know that we walk this line, because I've talked with, I met with folks at the ACL on the federal level to say, I can't advocate for my mom effectively for the skilled nursing facility or her placements not doing what they're required to do by regulation, for fear that they will move her out. And if I run my mouth,
some kind of reprimand for her.
Exactly. 100%. There's retribution. And so the reality is that we don't have good control. You probably feel like that at times if your parent is, or your loved one's in a congregate setting. It's hard because you have to find the balance, because if I push too hard on this facility, they'll move her out, and the next closest one is 2 hours away. Yes. And it's not going to punish my mom. So how do you navigate that really sensitively? But I will say this, JJ's the favorite, Emily's second favorite. JJ's the one who typically takes all the calls for my mom. My mom calls me if she needs something, like for real, because we're the most alike. And so you have to be okay with leaning into the person that you're caring for. Like, I'm okay being third. I always joke that I'm yellow mustard. JJ's Grey Poupon.
I love that.
And then I support them.
Yeah, I know one of the things, and this is interesting because it came up on I lead a daughterhood.org support group once a month. Sometimes there's topic circles, sometimes they're connection circles. And yesterday's connection circle, someone had asked the question about, like, they're in this space now where they want to take control, and they know they need to take control of their older adults' finances, but like, there's no roadmap for that. Like, what does that look like? And I know that you had to do that in your family. And JJ, can you talk about like how you did that and how you would recommend other people do that? What works and what doesn't?
Absolutely. So as Natalie said, Natalie is, and we each, the previous question you had, we do each have roles. So Natalie is insurance hardcore. She messes like, it's when I can't get something done and I'm, as we refer to, the snot sandwich, I call in the Terminator. Emilie is that soft heart. She's the one that is perfect giving mom a bath or changing her clothes or rubbing her feet and hands. That's Emilie's heart. But for the finances, wow, that was hard. I'm going to tell you, one of the biggest roadblocks was mom, because she was completely giving up her independence. There have been multiple times she said, "I think you're stealing my money." I'm like, "Mom, look at
You
me.
don't have any.
I mean,
Where's
I'm
my
the
Gucci
most-
bag? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I'm
Yeah.
like, "Mom, and it wasn't a negative thing, but she just thought all this money was disappearing." I'm like, "We didn't plan for this, Mom, first of all." And the structure of the healthcare system and what you have to pay for assisted living, and it's a mess, first of all. But I will tell you that on the way to the facility in Florida, as we're driving her to get her care, we had a medical power of attorney that was my Aunt Jane's in Tennessee. I'm trying to get to Florida. And mom was cognizant at the time. And we had to stop at a UPS store on a Sunday in Atlanta. There, I should have stopped and tell you.
I didn't know me then.
No, right?
I
We didn't
know, because she could give all the information that they needed. And on that Sunday, get a power of attorney, a financial power of attorney, a traditional power of attorney, and the medical power of attorney. I had to have her sign all that while I'm taking her to Florida to have her put it in.
You were like,
institution.
I think I need this.
Yeah,
At a psychiatric
thankfully,
institution.
we had an attorney back home that had helped prepare it. He had done what he could to explain it, but that is not the way you should do this.
Would not
But
advise
if you don't have those tools, it's virtually impossible dealing with the insurance agencies. And that's the one thing I stand on my soapbox and say, whether you need it or not. Natalie and I have gotten ours in place. Even, I'm 50, Natalie's 48.
I've got mine.
Get that stuff in place, because it everywhere that I went, it was, "Where's your power of attorney?" And I'm like, "Here it is," and get that stuff in place.
You slap it down like a driver's license.
Yeah.
And do you think it's easier? And that was kind of one of the things that came in the call. Like, is it easier to kind of have those discussions with a third party person who can explain, and maybe even if the cognitive thing is a challenge, but it can explain it where it's not you saying, "Hey, we need control of this, we need control," but having somebody else in that.
I will tell you that the one that we had for Tennessee, when we moved her to North Carolina, we wanted to get it. We wanted her to be fully cognizant, and I wanted her, it was a full blown. I had a friend that was an attorney that did estate planning, and Laura was a jewel. And she said, I want to go in and talk to your mom. And I said, "Okay, we'll go." And she said, "No." She said, "This is something that I do with aging people all the time." And she said, "I want to talk to your mom and get her decisions. And her decisions could be skewed because you're there." And she did mom's living will. She did everything. And she came out and she said everything went well. She said, "If she asked for you, I absolutely will bring you in." But she said sometimes they feel such pressure that you don't get exactly what they want. And but absolutely.
That was good.
Yeah.
And so then once you have that financial power of attorney, then you can take that to the banks. You can get
Absolutely.
access to things. It's like, do this, and then the rest kind of
Totally
can fall into place.
Yeah.
It's so hard though. It's so hard to watch these people who are like rocks in your life for most of your life. Like, and then they just need so much from you all. What are Natalie, and with, caring for your mom, caring for your husband, Jason, like what were some of the silver linings of caregiving for you? Like, it's not all bad.
Oh, no, it's not all bad. Some days just feel all bad.
Yeah.
And so I think, so what I had to find, and it's more for Jason. So I'm going to say this. I think this is really important. I am not as close to my mother, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so the way that I support my mom is I am the person that gets called in to help with navigating in the system, but I support my sisters.
And that's part of the whole thing.
Totally
Absolutely.
appropriate. When it comes to my husband, we have no children. I am the only person. That is a very different feel. And so I've lived with getting as a group, team, and individual solo. And so I think I'll say with my husband, the moments that I kept looking for the silver lining are almost feel like a little dissociation. Okay. And when I say that is, it would be the moments that I would have 20 minutes to myself to go to Trader Joe's, and I would just walk around and I was walking around the city. But the moments that we were together, that we were sitting at 57th Street at Sutton Place Park, and we're looking at Roosevelt Island, and the sun's shining on us. He could only go for about a block and a half walk because that's all the energy that he had. Jason's was 56 at the time, and of health. And we take about 10 or 15 minutes, and you got to almost pretend. It's the moments that you forget that the cancer's there. You forget that she's there. And that was the problem when I came home, is that she followed us home. And I refer to his cancer as the third wheel. Yeah. She's the mistress. And so until you accept that this is what our life is like, she sits really right in front of you. But when I accept her and we just accept that the cancer is going to be with us at some point because he'll probably get cancer again. He will very likely, because he had head and neck cancer. They radiated his head. That's not good. And so at some point, but when we move past it and we accept it and stop trying to ignore it and just embrace the situation, it's easier that the mistress goes to the back of the room. She fades into the background, and she comes forward every now and then because I've been coordinating his 2-year appointments, because Jason was part of a clinical trial. And so coordinating 15 appointments with people in New York City. And I had this sweet young lady send me back via portal. I said, all these appointments are over 3 weeks. We live in Virginia. I need you to put them in 2 days. And they've always done that. And she sends back and says, okay, well, I've changed these 2 appointments and you can reach out to the other departments. And I thought, not today, Satan. And so I was so mad. At first, it looked like the cat meme where it's like really fast typing. And I thought, that's not going to serve me well. So I deleted what I wanted to say.
Yeah, sleep on it, sit on it for a minute.
Yeah. And I just said, I could really use your help in talking to the others, so that way we could coordinate it. And guess what? Kindness won.
Good.
And all of our appointments are on 2 days. But that's when I put my caregiver hat on, and then I can take it back off. Yeah. Like I put it on and off. And I think that's the thing about caregiving, is most people don't see, like, the roles are very similar. So to my wife duties, to my daughter duties. And so it's okay that we can have dual roles. And you're going to wear your hat. Sometimes you wear both hats at the same time, and that's okay.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You definitely have learned a lot through this whole process. And you both are co-hosts of a fellow Whole Care Network podcast called Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver, which people can, I know that they're enjoying this episode, so they can kind of get more from both of y'all on that. But I got to ask you, I know that you always ask people what their confession is, but do you have any kinds of confessions related to caregiving or your own self-care that you want to expose here on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast?
Jay, you want to go Natalie. First? Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
We always talk about guilty confessions. Like, what's the guilty thing what's your guilty pleasure? Like, what do you do just for yourself? Because I call that self-care. Other care is really big to me. I work in the mental health field. I believe in helping other people. So this is why we do what we do. But if you really want to know my favorite guilty pleasure, it is if I can send Jason off to go out on a boys' night, quote unquote, and he goes out and spends time with his friends, and it's just me and my beagle and my bulldog, and we're watching the Hallmark Channel. And I am all about like unrealistic expectations of men. That is all the Hallmark Channel is. We fall in love. It's wrapped up by 2 hours. I leave feeling happy every time.
Yes.
And nobody's there to tell me it's stupid. And I'm like, suck it.
Yes. So, I love that.
That is my go-to every time. Hallmark Channel.
I love that. JJ, your turn.
Dun. I have a lot of things that make me happy. I was just thinking about that. Like, I have a lot of things. Like, I like to cook and all kinds of stuff like that. But I love to give stuff away. Like, even if it is like something small like that, like my kids love this pineapple cake, but I don't want to eat it. I want to give it away. Like, I love to just give things because There's something about the joy that you see when you give something to someone else, and it could be nothing. Like it could be just something small, and somebody's just happy. So I think you say that's a guilty pleasure, but for me, it is because sometimes you don't really have the time, or maybe you don't have the resources to do that. But you always have something that someone else will enjoy more than you are, or they'll use it more. So,
It
waste
kind of
your
gets
flour, do
JJ
all
just
that.
said, notice that JJ still is serving other people.
well. It's interesting. I mean, it is. It's like she didn't have enough caregiving. She needs more. She needs to take care of more people. But I get it because I think it's probably it gets you out of your own head, and you kind
Exactly.
of can like, oh, there's a whole big world out there. Like it's not just it's not just about me and my little world of what's going on. So interesting. Well, let's talk about self-care a little bit. So, one of your things I think that you had shared with me is that that you need to take care of yourself, and specifically like medically. Like
Hmm.
how did this revelation come about?
That is my soapbox, and I'm going to get on that. I'm going to climb that ladder.
Uh-oh.
Da da da.
Yeah.
So, in the midst of all of this, and we've seen it happen before, but it's recently happened to us, is that as a caregiver, you don't take care of yourself. And we're not talking, yes, you should go for a walk, or yes, you should try to relax, take breaths, meditation, but you actually physically do not take care of yourself. I've heard so many people say they've gained weight or they've done this, their diabetes have acted up. Well, for me, I have a lot of vitamin issues, absorption issues with vitamins. I hadn't had my blood taken. I hadn't done my annual physical in forever. I go get my physical about 3 weeks ago. It just so happens that my iron is really, really low again. And now I'm putting two and two together like, oh, that's why I'm so tired and cold all the time. And I live in Florida. But one of the main problems that my soapbox is up is because Natalie had not had her mammogram. And how long, Natalie?
I mean, it happened to be 7 years.
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Wow.
sucked. I
Yeah.
got yelled at by everybody.
Yeah.
And
And you're a cancer survivor, JJ. So I
Right.
don't know what type of cancer, but
she's the girly parts, the ovarian, the uterus area. So
okay.
I kept thinking it's not a problem. It's always the, girly down there part, not the booby parts. And so I'm like, and so I had a mammogram done a couple of months ago, and that was super amusing. Honestly, somebody should record me talking to all the staff. Talk about making them feel uncomfortable. But so we had fun until we saw a shadow. And then I go to have more scans, and I'm told that I need to have this needle biopsy. And fun fact, JJ and I sort of pass out at the whim of any level of pain. If the wind blows and it feels uncomfortable, we sort of pass out. We're fainting goats. And
Yeah.
so I typically like to have my hand held when I give blood. I like to have my hand held anytime and just talk to me a lot. But I go, Jason was so mad at me. My Jason was so mad at me. He was so scared. He was giving me more anxiety from his fear because of it, because he was being triggered.
Sure.
And so he said to me as I'm walking in the door, "Did you get your next one scheduled for next year?" And I'm like, "If you don't zip it, I'm going to kill you."
He's going to put it on his calendar.
Well, he
Yeah,
has it on his
exactly.
calendar. It is on his radar, but I had not taken care of myself. I did not see the doctor. I did not do any of the things I was supposed to do. I made sure he was cared for.
Yeah. Are you
And
okay?
I'm very lucky.
Yes.
At this point, yes, I am okay. We come back and it was magically gone. And they said, "Don't worry, menopause can do that to you because it can show up where you've got something there and then something not." And I'm like, well, that goes right along with everything else I'm experiencing. But I have to go back in 5 months. And so Jason has it on his calendar for when I'm going back in 5 months.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we don't think about I'm doing my mammogram next week, by the way. Like I just had my blood work done. I have hypothyroidism and
Yeah.
generalized anxiety. So I got to keep my hormones in check because
Exactly.
they run rampant. But every now and then, I'll think about my husband Jason, I'm like, have you gone to the dentist lately? Have you like you do have to kind of like be each other's mother,
Mm-hmm.
parent,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Caregiver.
Caregiver. Like, yeah, because, and here's the thing too. It's like our choices don't just impact us. Like,
That's
yes, we should
right.
do it for us. And yet, like, we're committed to these people that like, hey, you don't take care of yourself. This is going to impact me. And this is not my plan for our future.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I do want to say something that I don't think we mentioned to you beforehand, Elizabeth, is one of the things that I wish that we had had, and I didn't even think about this until now, Jay. Jason and I have palliative care. And we have palliative care, which has been a godsend.
What does that mean exactly? Because normally I think of palliative care, like you're sick, something's happened. Yes. Or you need something to have comfort. Like, so what does that mean for you all?
For us, so we had a really hard time. We tried to seek counseling during that time because it was very hard having support groups and things like that. We were on the other side of COVID. And so we were still a lot of restrictions. But I wish that we had had palliative care because there's an element of counseling to it. There's a nurse practitioner or a PA, a physician assistant who comes in and talks to you, checks on you, helps you with navigating your appointments, helps you with navigating what's going on. Janine is our person. And we have our palliative care through Elevance, who is our health care, health plan here in Virginia. I love Janine. She is absolutely family. And even though we got it after, it should have been, we didn't access it during. I think it is the most underutilized service that is of high benefit because Janine not only supports Jason in talking to him about how are you feeling? Do you feel like you need something different? She's made recommendations to help him because he has very limited energy because of the side effects. But she also has made alternative recommendations, and she listens to me as the caregiver. And when there are things that he doesn't want to do because he doesn't feel like it's going to quote unquote work, she says to him, well, do you think you should probably try it for Natalie? And I thought, I love you. And so I'm going to tell you, if you're out there, this is not hospice. I think it's super important.
It's for anybody at any point.
For anybody who's, and it's going to be connected to someone who's got complex health issues, chronic health issues, or an aging person who is going to the doctor, because it's really meant to be preventative. And it allows us, so when we have a problem, they can actually order Jason's meds, and it keeps us from having to go into the doctor.
So they're like your first point of contact instead of 100%. Like his primary care physician. It's like their palliative care. And how would someone get that? Do they have to go through their primary care physician, or do they just call up their insurance or?
Call up their insurance. Okay. And if you're somebody who is going to end up, if you're using your insurance a good bit, this is not for the person who is just well, and you're just doing well checks.
Yeah.
This is for a person who's going to the doctor a good bit. They've got complications. They could have certain types of diagnoses. Call up your insurance plan, speak to the care coordinator, and ask them if palliative care is right for you or your loved one.
Interesting.
That is my biggest recommendation at this point.
I love that. Well, I mean, listen, caregivers, we are the experts in caregiving, and that's why there's only caregivers that come on the show, because I believe that you all are the experts. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot. We're going to talk through the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. I flagged some questions. Let me see.
Yes, we're ready.
And, I was just thinking that, so we're recording this and it's close to leap year. And I was like, I'm so proud of myself that I included February 29th in my journal.
You're like nailing it.
I'm like these poor people that that's their day.
What if it was your birthday? Think about that.
Yes. Think about your birthday.
I'm 4 years old.
So that was prompted this question, and one of y'all can take it. Maybe you guys can, each take one question. Yeah. Describe a moment in time where you took a leap of faith, and how did it turn out? Who wants to take that one? We'll give y'all different questions.
A leap of faith. We take leaps of faith all the time.
Yeah. Literally close your eyes.
We just jump in. Natalie and I, the venture into podcasting, we laugh about it because we started the podcast. We'd never listened to a podcast before. I didn't know where to find a podcast. I was like, how do you find it? And
We're
and
idiots.
the problem is that Natalie called me and she said, "Hey, let's start a podcast." And my normal answer is, "Okay." And that's really what happened. But the blessing that the podcast has been, like sometimes I wonder, do the listeners get more out of it or do I get more out of it?
I mean, it's like therapy.
It is the best
It
therapy.
is. And I think that's that kind of leap of faith. You look at it, we have another venture that we're going into for caregivers. And we were like, this is in our heart. This is good. If this benefits one person, let's do it. And I think that's where we are. If it benefits one person,
Let's do
I think
it.
the Lord's
but
going to take
it's usually
care of
with
us.
Natalie. I think that's the problem is that my leap of faith that we hold hands and we just jump off the cliff. We're like, let's go. So-
Aw, I love that. I love that. Can you talk about your next thing or is it too soon?
Oh,
Okay, well, wait, that's okay. Wait for
I'll
it.
tell you. I'll tell you.
Okay.
So we're looking at Midsummer, and this is a platform for individuals to be able to submit care requests and the community to respond. And we'll be building a community action network, and we'll be working with health plans and government entities. And the goal is that it supports individuals to remain in the community because we want to try to
Amazing.
keep people out of assisted living and congregate as much as possible.
So beyond even like your care circle, it's your community can pitch in and
It's strangers become neighbors, weaving kindness into the fabric of our community.
So
That's
interesting.
That's our goal.
So interesting. I don't know if you all have this. It's not quite the same thing, but there's a group called Neighbor Force.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. We have it in Atlanta. Not everybody has it. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's in some areas, but I like the idea of NABOR, like your good neighbor. But this takes it even like another step further. So that's amazing. Well, this will come out, I don't think till spring. So y'all have to get the
That's okay. It's like a
details on
secret.
that. Yes. Yes. Okay, here's a question. So for you, Natalie, what's your favorite self-care activity that doesn't cost a penny?
Besides Hallmark. Okay.
Yeah.
Besides Hallmark.
Hallmark.
I have found, and this is me though. There's two things. One, it is very important that I move. And so whether I walk outside or, and I go, my friend Julie, and I hope she hears this. I walk 6 miles with Julie every Sunday and we talk.
And girl, that's a long time.
It is a beautiful thing. And I do my best thing. I always joke that my best ideas come from when I'm moving, whether I'm driving or I'm walking. It's where my brain really thinks. And I listen to Christian music in the morning to get me going. And I feel closer to God when I'm singing, and I sing. I like to pretend like I should be on The Voice. I should not.
That's what I was going to say. Natalie, her free thing is that she sings.
I typically sing on our podcast, and JJ just makes fun of me, and I support it. But
he's waiting to be discovered, evidently.
Yeah, I mean, clearly. But I really do believe that singing and it make a joyful noise, even if it sounds bad.
So nice. So
it's
nice.
Joyful.
It's joyful, all right.
I mean, I could talk to you all day for sure, but the time is flying by. How do people learn more about you, stay connected, get plugged in to all the good stuff that's going on? And like, what little words of wisdom would you want to say to kind of close up that a caregiver might need to hear today?
So you can find us. We feel like everywhere. We're on all the social media platforms. confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com is our website. Facebook. Now we always laugh. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We just got on TikTok. YouTube. That's a little crazy for us. YouTube. Words of advice, Natalie. Our theme on the show is relate, educate, inspire, and laugh. And we love to laugh, Elizabeth. I mean, because that's the way we get through so much. And I think that's important. It's not that caregiving isn't a serious topic, but somewhere in there, you can't be so hard on yourself. I think that would be my advice. You have to give yourself grace, but it's going to be okay. And so
and you are enough.
Yes.
You're doing good enough.
Yeah.
I am enough. I'm doing good enough.
Yes. That's so true. That's so true. Ladies, you're crushing it. Yes, with your messy caregiving life, I think is like what I'm going to call this show is like messy caregiving with the sisters. Because
dumpster fire, whichever.
yeah, because I mean it is. It's like it's perfectly imperfect and you're figuring it out as you go.
Yep.
And there's more chapters to come and you're gonna you're gonna figure it out and you're gonna laugh your way through it.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
So all right, love you all. And
Thank you so
thank you
much.
so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast on the Whole Care Network. As always, show notes that accompany today's episode can be found on my website, happyhealthycaregiver.com. Just look under the podcast menu for today's episode image, and that will take you to the page with the links and information we spoke about today. You'll also find other resources on the website, along with links to purchase the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. When you purchase from my website, you'll get a signed copy and for a limited time, free shipping. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, consider subscribing to the show on your podcast platform. It really helps other family caregivers find the podcast, and you'll automatically receive our bi-weekly shows in your podcast listening queue. Maybe while you're subscribing, consider leaving a 5-star rating and review, or just simply talk it up on your social channels. Let's stay connected. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Happy Healthy Caregiver. And until we meet again, please take care of you.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.